And in the series finale, Ruth took care of Nelson's body. She buried it in what is supposed to be her swimming pool. As she's just finishing up, the cement truck arrives, but so does Marty Byrde. She is absolutely covered in dirt, filthy, and the last person she wants to see is Marty Byrde. But Marty came there, hat in hand, hoping that Ruth can help him get Charlotte and Jonah to come home. While Ruth doesn't really want to help Marty out, Marty plays the ultimate trump card, that Javi's mom wants answers as to who actually killed him, and if Ruth doesn't help out Marty, he's going to tell her. That kind of forces Ruth's hand. Plus, after a run-in she had with Nathan, she doesn't really like him. Nathan was extremely rude to her and treated her like trash. Like Ben, of all people, was too good for her. So screwing him over would be a little bit of a bonus. While Ruth decides just how she's going to handle this, Marty then has to race home because he has a meeting with Camilla. He doesn't tell Camilla exactly where Wendy is, just saying that she's out doing some other work. He gives Camilla some bank information she's going to need and also gives her an update on what's going to happen with Omar. He's going to be transferred with absolutely no warning. He doesn't come right out and say it, but the plan is going to be to make it look like Omar planned an escape and he was killed in the process. Camilla looks at Marty and says, "I'm not agreeing to anything until I hear this from the FBI." Marty finds it ironic because that's exactly what Omar said. She then starts asking questions about the day that Javi died. And Marty lies to her, just telling her that it was a normal day and he has no idea what happened. This is obviously a topic that Camilla is not going to let go. While Marty and Camilla were meeting, Ruth devised a plan on how to get Charlotte and Jonah to stay. But the first place that Ruth heads isn't to go meet with Jonah and Charlotte. The first place she heads is to go meet with Wendy. She wants assurances from Wendy because it's become clear to everybody involved that Wendy is actually the boss in all of this. Even though Marty said that this was his idea, she tells Wendy, "I need assurances that if I get them to stay, you'll hold up your end of the agreement, and that's enough. I can get them to stay, I can't keep them here. That's on you." After Ruth gets such assurances, she heads over to the Lazy O. The first thing she does is pull out a gun from the safe, and then she heads to Nathan's room. She offers to have a drink with him since he's leaving the next day, and they start chatting up about Ben, the relationship. But the conversation turns contentious when Ruth looks at him and says, "You don't even want them, do you?" Nathan tries to kick her out, and she says, "I'll leave if you tell me why you went to court for kids you don't even want." And the answer he gives is to screw over Wendy. In Nathan's eyes, she was a complete embarrassment to the family. That's when Ruth pulls out the gun, looking at Nathan and saying, "You're going to tell Jonah and Charlotte that they can't come with you." When Nathan says that's not going to happen, Ruth fires off a shot. Ruth knows that Jonah and Charlotte are going to be running in there at any moment. So she says to Nathan, "I want you to tell them exactly what you just told me before I shoot you in your head, the little one." And just as Ruth predicted, in bust Jonah and Charlotte, who are very confused at the sight they see. With no real choice, Nathan admits that he never wanted them. And a little while later, Jonah and Charlotte head to the mental institution to check up on their mom. She apologizes to both of them for everything that happened to Ben and everything that's happened to them so far, taking a lot of the responsibility for it. But she also says things like, Ben would have gotten us all killed. So while she takes some responsibility, she also justifies a lot of her actions. At the end of her impassioned speech, she looks at both of them and says, "If you want to go, go. And I promise you, I will love you just as much." The kids do go, right into the car where Marty is waiting for them, and right behind them is Wendy. The happy family is heading home, and this is actually the first scene of part 1 of season 4. They're talking about their meeting with the FBI the next day. They're also talking about the gala, when all of a sudden, they're thrown off the road by a rogue semi-truck. They get into a pretty nasty accident. I assume they're driving a Subaru because somehow everybody survives. And what's the most amazing thing, in the 4 years of this show, is this car is tumbling. Really bad accident we're talking here. And no driver stops on the side of the road to see how they're doing. The Byrdes just have to dust themselves off and take a cab back home. And when they get home, Father Benitez is waiting for him. He tells him that Nelson is missing and Omar is agitated about it. He wants to talk to him right away and see if they know anything about it. Marty tells Father Benitez, "No problem, I just have to run a quick errand first." And that errand is going to talk to Ruth. Because after what he saw in the morning, he now thinks he knows what happened to Nelson. He asks her, "Is Nelson buried in your pool?" And by her reaction, he knows the answer without her having to say a word. He lets her know that Omar is looking for Nelson and knows he's missing, but also Omar's about to be out of the picture. She should be safe, but just in case she's concerned, he can give her the name of a PI and get her a brand new identity. She doesn't want that. She's just going to ride this thing out. The last thing he has to talk to her about is the casino. He tells her that they're meeting with the FBI the next morning and they need assurances that they can continue to launder money through it. She is blown away that the FBI is involved, and Marty reminds her it's not a crime if the FBI is sanctioning it. So Ruth agrees that the next morning she'll sit down and hear them out. Marty then heads back home, and him and Wendy head to the prison to meet with Omar. He tells them that he knows it was Camilla who ordered the hit, and he gives them a phone number that they're supposed to call, and whoever's on the other end of that is going to take care of her. He then asks about Nelson, but he also thinks that was Camilla as well. The conversation then moves into busting him out, and the Byrdes tell him exactly what he wants to hear, knowing that he's never getting out. The Byrdes then leave the meeting with Omar and head right to the funeral home to have the meeting with Camilla, the FBI, and Ruth. Ruth shows up with Rachel. She filled Rachel in on everything, and Rachel's in a weird headspace having just killed Nathan. She's not used to that sort of thing. She suggests to Ruth that they get the hell out of there, but Ruth isn't about to do that. She's about to get the okay from the FBI to make a ton of money. The FBI hands both Rachel and Ruth papers guaranteeing their freedom from prosecution. The deal with Camilla, on the other hand, is going to have to be verbal. The meeting goes off without a hitch. Everybody seems to be on board. Afterwards, Wendy heads to the Lazy O since Nathan is leaving that day, but she's surprised to see Sam. Sam has decided that there's nothing really for him in the Ozarks anymore, and he has a calling now with the church. So he's heading with Nathan's congregation back to North Carolina to start a new life for himself. He seems really excited about this new opportunity, and Wendy gives him a hug and tells him goodbye. She does the same thing to her father, but she also lets him know that the Byrde Foundation is going to be making a very generous donation to the site dedicated to finding Ben. This will continue until he's found. This is going to allow Nathan to continue to do his work. While Nathan's girlfriend is excited for him, Nathan knows that it's nothing more than a payoff by his daughter, and it's dirty money. While she hugs Sam goodbye, she does not hug her father goodbye. She then heads home and gets ready for that night's gala, where all of the Byrdes are dressed up and looking great. When they arrive at the Missouri Belle, Jim lets them know that no big donor has backed out. In fact, they're still fielding requests. The Byrde Foundation is about to be flooded with donor money. This is just the thing that Wendy needs to get out of the Schaefer business. She goes and finds him at the blackjack table and pulls him away and lets him know that he is off the board. She's instructed the people in Michigan and Wisconsin to pull his rigged voting machines. He tries to remind her that she needs him on this board, but she says, "No, we don't. Look upstairs." Oh, and we've also talked to our good friends at the FBI. This is going to be our first anti-corruption partnership. Schaefer is all but drowning, trying to tell Wendy she doesn't want to do this. She walks away and leaves Schaefer drowning. As the Byrdes go and enjoy the rest of their night, the Omar phase of their plan is currently in action. Omar is transferred, but then all of a sudden, the vehicle he's in stops. The prison guard in the driver's seat shoots his partner and starts to let Omar out, handing him the gun and telling him there's an airplane right down the road. He's to take it and get out. But as soon as Omar gets maybe 5-10 steps ahead, he hears a gun cock back behind him, and he knows he was just set up. Omar starts trying to fire the gun that was handed to him, but it's empty. It only had one bullet in it. And a few seconds later, Omar Navarro is shot dead in what looks like a prison escape gone wrong. Back at the Missouri Belle, nobody is any of the wiser. In fact, the Byrdes are yucking it up with Claire Shaw, and that's when the conversation is interrupted by Camilla. She first starts out congratulating the Byrdes on the gala, but then she turns her attention to Claire Shaw, telling her she's glad she's there because she knows that Claire was with her son the night that he was murdered. Claire tries her best to play the Marty Byrde role lying, but she's not very good at it. And Camilla is quite intimidating. She tells Claire that if Claire is honest with her about who killed her son, she'll forgive her. But if she lies and Camilla finds out about it later on, not only will she get revenge for her son, but she'll also kill Claire in what can only be described as a very painful death. This results in Claire giving up Ruth real fast. As soon as she does, Marty knows that Ruth is all but dead. Claire starts to apologize, but it's too late. Camilla turns to one of her security guards and instructs him to go follow Ruth. She then looks at Wendy and tells her, if you warn Ruth, or if I even sense that somebody's following me, I'll kill all of you. She then instructs another one of her security guards to kill Jonah and Charlotte if Marty or Wendy so much look at Ruth. Marty and Wendy get together trying to figure out what exactly they're supposed to do in this situation, but neither of them have an answer. The one idea that Wendy has is they still have the number for Navarro's hitman. They can call the hit on Camilla. But Marty knows that's not going to matter. They're moving him that night. He's probably already dead. The fact is, anything they try to do is going to end up being suicide. With all of that on their mind, they still have to host the gala. But as they're up there addressing the crowd, Ruth headed home early, and she was followed. When she gets to her house, she's surprised to see a Cadillac in the driveway. She has a pretty good idea that who's ever in that Cadillac isn't somebody you really want to see late at night, and she would be correct. It's Camilla. Camilla approaches her holding a gun and says, Claire Shaw told me that you were the one who killed my son. And like the ultimate badass she is, Ruth looks her dead in the eye and says, I'm not sorry. Your son was a murdering bitch, and now I know where he got it from. Camilla raises the gun, but she makes Ruth sweat it out, to the point where Ruth actually yells at her, are you gonna do it or not? And Camilla does. She shoots Ruth dead in her driveway. Later that night, the Byrdes arrive back at home, trying to ponder their next move, when both Marty and Wendy notice that their house has been broken into, and there's somebody sitting out in their lawn. It's Mel Saddam, and he's holding the goat cookie jar that was given to Jonah by Ruth. He explains to him that after 4 days, he couldn't do his job. He couldn't stop thinking about them. And then, he couldn't get the cookie jar out of his head. I mean, who doesn't ever fill a cookie jar? Like, that's weird behavior. And then also, why would she give it to a kid? That didn't make much sense. Except that kid, being Jonah, loved Ben. And Ben loved goats. So Mel kind of got this hunch that all of this might be connected. He broke into the house and was able to confirm. There are no cookies in there. There's just evidence. Marty and Wendy start telling Mel that they can pay them anything he wants. But Mel doesn't want their money. He looks at them both and says, don't you get it? You don't get to win. You don't get to be the Kochs or the Kennedys or whatever royalty you people think you are. World doesn't work like that. And Wendy asks him, since when? You then hear somebody pump a shotgun, and it's Jonah. The screen then fades to black, and you hear the shotgun go off. And that is how Ozark ends. Thank you so much for checking this out. I really appreciate it. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. Let me know what you think of this finale. I am torn on whether I liked it or not. The whole fade to black thing I think has kind of been done by The Sopranos, and that didn't go well. But at the end of the day, this does prove it's the Byrdes versus everybody, and the Byrdes always win. Check out my merch store. I have shirts and whatnot. But thank you so much getting to this point of the recap. I really appreciate it.